When do you feel like you've made it in magic? Is it when you win FISM, which is our Olympics? Is it when you're headlining a Las Vegas show? Is it when you fool Penn and Teller on Fool Us? Me personally, I know I've made it when I have Di Vernon's granddaughter calling me an asshole. Speaking of Fool Us, there's a very distinct topic that's the talk among the town of magicians every time I peruse Facebook, and that's on the subject of Fool Us. Now, Fool Us, if you're not familiar, is a show that's presented by Penn and Teller where you have a magician and their job is to fool Penn and Teller. If they fool Penn and Teller, they get to either win a cash prize, which I believe it's like $2,000. Come on, be better, guys.
Be better. Be better.
Or they have the opportunity to perform as an opener in their stage show in Las Vegas. And the cycle is always the same. A magician goes on Fool Us, the magician posts the video on their YouTube channel, they get a lot of views, somebody decides to post a video explaining how the magician did their act, and then the circle of life revolves again. And I happen to come across this post on Facebook right here, where somebody is mentioning that this individual has posted an expose, an explanation of Danny D'Artiz's recent appearance on Penn and Teller Fool Us. Now, personally, on these channels, I think you're kind of a dickhead. I think you're kind of an asshole. Obviously, if a magician has gone on Fool Us, it's because they've got an act or they have a routine that they think is good enough to fool Penn and Teller and fool the world, essentially. And usually when it comes to these expose videos, these individuals really don't have any of the nuances of the actual performance, and they're mostly speculating. So you watch a video like that, wondering, hey, how did this performer actually do this act? And you end up watching a video of a shitty magician speculating on the method. If you're gonna expose them, at least do it right. At least spend the time, especially when it comes to something like Danny D'Artiz, that there's hundreds of little nuances that goes into each performance. Put some effort, my G. Put some dedication in that bitch. They always half-heartedly explain these things without really any sort of attention to detail, which is really the purpose of the show. It's the attention to detail that ends up fooling Penn and Teller. Now, here's the thing. Are you wrong for doing it? Are you technically doing something that you're not supposed to? No, you could do that. That's allowed because it's your content. Right now, granted, your content is exposing a magician and their methods, but that's really nothing that's against the law. And here's a little bit of a hot take, but if you look at the comments section, it's people that aren't necessarily magicians, especially when it comes to this video. They're people that just want to know how Danny D'Artiz performed a trick. And the comments are very positive. The comments are appreciative of the work and dedication to actually performing the trick. Now again, it's something that I don't necessarily like. I'm not a huge fan, but ultimately the video is well produced. He does go through it. Obviously, he's not going to go into the detail that Danny D'Artiz would in his lecture, but it's still not bad. And think about it this way, right? Look at the name of the show. The show is called Fool Us. The whole premise is to fool Penn and Teller. The focus of the show is on the methodology. So I think if you're going to complain about these channels, which granted there's a lot of things to complain about, you got to start at the top, baby. The whole premise of the show is faulty if you are someone that's a purist, which me just saying those words makes me want to find the nearest bridge and make myself acquainted with it. If you're somebody that only believes in the idea that you can't really learn magic unless it's through apprenticeship or you have some sort of process, and magic shops are terrible because they're exposing methods, which believe it or not is a very common belief in the magic community, then get upset at the show. The whole show, the premise is for lay people to figure out how the trick is done. They're living vicariously through Penn and Teller. Even when Penn talks in code in the show to try not to talk directly about methods, people still go online and they speculate as to what he's talking about. When he says something like, hey man, that deck must be cold, obviously people are going to go online, find the concept of coolers, which is a reference to a deck switch, and they're going to learn about that particular method. So the whole premise of the show is on exposing magic and figuring out the actual way that the trick was done. So then why are you going to complain about a dude that's going online and showing how the trick is done? Especially when Penn and Teller both admit on television to not knowing how it's done. Hey, here's how it's done. Here's a viable video. So it makes sense. You can't knock the guy, but he's a bit of an asshole. That's the most that you could really say about these style of videos. You're kind of a prick, but you're not wrong. At least you have that. And if you're a magician that's complaining on Facebook about this sort of shit, look at this show. Bitch at Penn and Teller. Complain to them about the whole premise of their program. And don't complain about the YouTube guy that's just trying to capitalize on a hot topic for views. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of insight, my take on this, my hot take on this issue because magicians typically respond with emotion rather than logic, and this is something that should be approached logically. So what do you guys think about this whole thing? Leave it in the comment section below. It tricks YouTube into thinking that maybe this channel is actually better than it actually is. It's not. It's not. I know people already complain about YouTube tutorials, and that's another thing altogether. I'd gladly debate you if you want to do that. We'll set up a Discord call and we'll debate on the topic of magic and tutorials and exposure like that, and you will lose. But this is a different thing entirely. This is something that thrives in its own environment and is worthy of an actual back and forth debate because I'm still on the fence. I disagree with the videos, but he's not doing anything wrong. And if you're saying he's doing something wrong, well, you're wrong because he's allowed to. So some advice at the end of the video. I like to usually give some tips and tricks at the end of the video to improve your life. Let's see if I could find something. These are off the cuff, by the way. I don't know if you figured it out by watching these videos. These are off the cuff. So I typically like to look for things in the environment and I comment on them. Like these right here. These are grinds by a Black Rifle Company. I got this because of Peter McKinnon. So he's an influencer, technically, because he influenced me to purchase these. These are little coffee things, right? I don't know if I've mentioned this in videos before, but the little pouches that go into your lip like dip, right? Like the people that hate blacks, that they put in their mouth and they spit into cans, right? You put it in your tongue or under your tongue and you get coffee. So it's like coffee and it has 55 milligrams of caffeine per pouch. So you're just there just sucking up coffee because it combines with your spit. So it's a nice little thing to get. It doesn't taste good. So it tastes like Denny's coffee with too much sweet and low. That's exactly what it tastes like, which is not my preferred type of coffee. I like, I don't know, a more robust cup. Even though I do drink instant coffee on a daily basis, I like something that's more involved than sweet and low Denny's coffee. But there's a merit to Denny's coffee with sweet and low, right? It reminds you of certain times that you've been at Denny's, maybe at 2 o'clock after a bender, and you're trying to get your bearings back. So maybe this might remind you of that.
I see you again, when 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 I see